Welcome. In the previous module, we saw how the governing process for a lab environment needs to be done. That time, Sitaram showed you what all are the core equipment, core items that need to be worn in a lab environment. Now we will go to the next level and introduce you to the different components in a typical microfabrication lab. Now Sitaram is already outside the lab and he has fully worn like this gown, and we will see how he enters. Why we are showing you this is that at the entrance of the lab you can see an equipment placed on top. That is an air curtain. Again, so the air curtain will allow to push dust particles outside. Now Sitaram will enter the lab. As he enters the lab, you can see that the air curtain is falling. That air curtain will ensure that the dust particles don't enter inside. Now Sitaram is inside the lab, and as soon as the door closes, the air curtain stops. This way, particulate matter within the lab will be controlled. As Professor Pandya would have explained to you, we are maintaining a class 10,000 clean room here. Just like that, in any clean room we can have different classes of clean rooms, starting from class 10 and that goes on up to class 10,000 or class 100,000. You would already know what these different classes are and how they are related to the sizes of the particulate matter that will be contained within the lab. So first primary item as you enter the lab is an air curtain, which we saw. Now Sitaram has entered the lab. Now he will go about explaining to you what are the different equipment that are available in the lab. So we have to maintain chemicals at different low temperatures so that they don't get contaminated and get spoiled. So Sitaram is near to, as you enter the lab, we see a fridge that is maintained at 4 degrees Celsius, and you can keep chemicals in that fridge. So Sitaram will now go and open the fridge and show you the chemicals that can be kept inside. So we have few antibodies that are kept inside. So as you open it, you have to open it, and immediately we have to close the fridge. So this might seem very trivial for you because you will be operating refrigerators in your home, but then we are dealing with very crucial chemicals that need to be maintained at definite temperatures in a microfabrication environment. So at the moment you open and close, the control system on the fridge, on the top of the fridge you can see the temperature of the internal environment that is maintained. So when Sitaram opens the fridge, and if he keeps the fridge open for sufficiently long time, you can see that the temperature is going up. So there is a allowance kept. So if it is staying within like 4.6 and 3.8 degrees Celsius, it is fine. But if you forget to close the fridge, or the fridge is not closed properly, the temperature will keep going up continuously, and that can cause damage to the chemicals that are kept inside. So these small things need to be kept in mind properly so that you get best results out of your experiments. At the end of the day, you have to use these chemicals, you have to use your microfabricated sensors and perform experiments so that you get your intended results. As I told, your aim is to perform experiments with your fabricated sensors. You start doing the experiment with your hypothesis. So for any research work, you begin with a hypothesis. So you say that I have this sensor, I give these inputs to these sensors, and I expect these results. That is your hypothesis. So to prove your hypothesis, what do? You start first to design your sensor, what all different materials will be there, what all chemicals will be used to fabricate the sensor. You make a plan of action. Then you go to a fabrication facility and you make your sensors. Once you make your sensors, you have to first confirm whether your sensor or your fabricated device is actually conforming to the norms of your design. For that, there are characterization techniques. These details that Professor Pandya will cover in the coursework, or you would have already covered. So these characterization techniques will enable you to confirm whether your design and your fabricated final device are matching. Once this is done, you will have your device ready, that is meeting your design specifications. Once a device is ready, just having the device is not useful for you. You need to prove your hypothesis. Fundamentally, your device is part of your hypothesis. You take your device, bring it back to the lab in a device called a desiccator, which we will introduce you shortly. So the desiccator will prevent the device from getting contaminated. You bring the device to the lab, then you will identify the inputs or the samples that will go with your sensor. You introduce these samples and inputs to your sensor, again with another array of devices which we will be introducing again in this course, and then you apply the inputs to the device and you see the response. So these sensors will respond in different ways, but then that is just raw data. You need to make sense out of the raw data and process the data in a meaningful manner. For that, we have other data acquisition systems which are also available in this lab and which we will be introducing. Once the data acquisition systems acquire your data, you make sense out of that data, find a meaning in it and see if that is meeting your hypothesis. This is your whole hypothesis testing life cycle or process cycle, where you start with a sensor and you end with the results. You may or may not get your intended result, but then for you, one main thing for you to get your result, provided every other process is correct, is to follow good lab practices. And the first step in that is to perform the governing process properly, follow the stated specifications and standard operating procedure for each and every equipment in your lab. You have to follow the standard operating procedure for each and every equipment in the lab. Some procedures may sound very trivial and simple for you, but in the grand scheme of things, if you don't follow that small step, and if your device gets contaminated or stops working, you have to go back to your start and you will lose lot of time. Time, money, investment, everything will be lost if you don't follow this small step. Hope you understood the importance of following the operating procedures. We are telling this beforehand because now we will be going into full details about different equipment that are used in a typical microfabrication lab, and you have to keep this in mind so that you appreciate the equipment as also work in the lab as a responsible researcher.